Nattokinase has become a very popular supplement to improve overall blood flow, circulation, and overall health. So, in today's video, what I'm going to do is actually share with you the unique benefits associated with this particular compound. Now, before we get into the video, we need to understand what nattokinase actually is. Now, nattokinase is an enzyme produced during the fermentation of soybeans. Now, it can be produced in multiple different ways, but it was first extracted and purified from natto, or natto, a fermented soybean dish from Japan. Now, the fermentation works by adding Bacillus subtilis to natto, which produces the enzyme when digesting the natto. Even though its name is nattokinase, it's not a kinase enzyme, but a serine protease of the substillin family. So, what does nattokinase actually do? Nattokinase mainly works as an anti-inflammatory and fibrinolytic or antithrombotic agent. Moving on, let's look at how nattokinase actually works. Mainly works as an anti-inflammatory and fibrinolytic antithrombotic agent. The fibrinolytic effects are especially interesting for the prevention of scar tissue formation in every sense and the accumulation of circulating immune complexes, CICs, that contribute to chronic low-grade inflammation. It also has surprising effects on blood pressure and viscosity, heart disease, and plaque formation, as well as the deep vein thrombosis that so many people seem to have suddenly developed in the past few years. Now, to make it shorter, I'll actually use the abbreviation NK as it's much easier to pronounce. NK works through multiple mechanisms. Firstly, it can break down fibrin directly. Secondly, it increases plasma levels. Thirdly, it raises the concentration of tissue plasminogen activators, which helps the body dissolve blood clots. These fibrinolytic effects have many possible benefits. In general, accumulation of fibrotic tissue is synonymous with aging. As we age, we increasingly gain fibrotic tissue and lose metabolically healthy active tissue. Our organ functions decline and we lose elasticity in a very broad sense. Skin wrinkles are not just a cosmetic thing, they're also potentially a mirror to our inner health. In people with autoimmune disorders, dissolving circulating immune complexes, CICs, may remove the reason for the immune system to attack a certain tissue, as the CICs are triggers for the immune system. There is speculation about this mechanism of breaking down immune complexes doing the same to the spike protein that most of us have had thorough exposure to. Deep vein thrombosis, also sometimes called microclots colloquially, can be broken down by NK through the mechanisms listed before and on the next slide. Now, what about in deep vein thrombosis? NK has antithrombotic effects through multiple mechanisms as shown in the image. It inhibits TLR4, which increases the pro-iron fel. Cytokines that increase thrombogenic activity through TNF alpha and interleukin 6. It inhibits platelet aggregation. It breaks down cross-linkage of fibrin. It inactivates fibrinogen factor 7 and factor C8, which are essential in one of the thrombogenic pathways. It increases tissue plasmin activator TPA, which, as the name suggests, activates plasmin in order to begin lysing, breaking down Diochane of the clot. Looking at a lung study, here we can see the benefits of NK supplementation in pulmonary fibrosis. For example, NK has been found to be highly effective at improving patients' well-being and shortness of breath. In pulmonary lung fibrosis, for example, NK has been found to be highly effective at improving patients' well-being and shortness of breath. The subjective well-being scores of many patients improved as well. Now let's have a look at the anti-inflammatory effects of NK. NK elicited prominent anti-inflammatory activity in raw 264 7 macrophages via suppressing the LPS-induced TLR4 and NOX2 activation, thereby repressing the corresponding ROS production, MAPase activation and NFKB translocation from the cytoplasm to the nucleus, where it mediates the expression of pro-inflammatory mediators such as TNFA, Illinois, JOS6, NO, and PAI1 in activated macrophage cells. In particular, consistent with the macrophage studies, NK markedly inhibited serum PAI1 levels induced by LPS, thereby blocking the deposition of fibrin in the glomeruli of endotoxin-treated animals. As we know, LPS is a chronic stressor for everyone that eats food. Now, what about NK's effects in heart disease? Following the treatment of NK for 26 weeks, there was a significant reduction in CCAIMT, a measure of arterial wall thickness and carotid plaque size in both groups. Carotid plaque size and CCAIMT reduced by 9 millimeters and 12 millimeters respectively. The reduction in the NK group was significant. Now, this study here was titled Effective Management of Atherosclerosis Progress and Hyperlipidemia with Nattokinase, a clinical study with over 1,000 participants. People that have atherosclerosis with comorbidities such as a higher BMI or are smokers or drinkers were found to be most positively affected by the lipid lowering effects of NK. Now, what about how NK can potentially affect blood pressure? NK also has blood pressure lowering effects diastolic in hypertensive patients. Now, this study was titled Consumption of Nattokinase is associated with reduced blood pressure and von Willebrand factor, a cardiovascular risk marker. Results from a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled, multi-center North American clinical trial. It was more robust in male patients. However, female patients saw a surprisingly large reduction in elevated von Willebrand factor, VWF, which has been associated with the risk of ischemic strokes. Now, what about the risks and drawbacks associated with supplementing with NK? One of the most remarkable things about NK is not its efficacy, but its safety profile. It is well tolerated in all the aforementioned studies and more. The maximum daily tolerant dose in mice is up to 480.000 FUKG in mice, which equates to an astonishing 33.6 million FU for an average 70 kilograms, 155 pounds. When considering taking NK, one should be aware if they have a clotting disorder or are taking other blood thinners or anticoagulants. Even though one of the studies showed synergism with K2 and aspirin, it might be wise to wait for more studies on the possible interactions. So far, only a few negative case reports have been added to the literature. One of which being a surgery patient who died due to omitting the fact that he was taking NK pre-surgery and unexpectedly bled to death. Another case involves a 92-year-old woman in whom blood started pooling in the peritoneal cavity between the inner lining of the abdominal wall and the internal organs. Lastly, a potential link to anaphylaxis has been suggested due to a report that indicated the possibility of NK-induced sensitization. So now you're probably wondering about how much NK to supplement with and when to use it. When taking NK, one must be aware of the fact that as a systemic enzyme, it may break down food when taking alongside it. If the therapeutic effects of NK are wanted, it is likely best to take it away from meals, 30 minutes before breakfast in the morning, for example. That way, the enzymes are absorbed and not wasted on digesting food. As for the dosage, 2,000 to 7,000 FU has been used. However, there are studies such as the one mentioned for atherosclerosis that suggest a higher dosage in the range of 10,000 to 15,000 FU. One should experiment and talk to their doctor before taking massive doses of NK. So here are some experiential reports. Obviously, this is anecdotal evidence, but I do want to share what people have said about nattokinase supplementation. I have recently tried NK for my brain fog, and it literally knocked out my near 1 year brain fog immediately after taking it. Not only that, it cleared up my constipation migraines and gave me a massive energy surge throughout my day, better than coffee. It is like a nootropic as well, I guess, since it increases blood flow and oxygen throughout the body. This supplement is phenomenal, and I highly recommend it to anybody having issues with brain fog, ADHD, or any other issues with circulation. On the plus side, it helps long COVID haulers and even deactivates spike proteins. This supplement is gold. I've taken a combination of NAC, serrapeptase, then NK each 30 minutes apart on an empty stomach in the morning for the past 3 months. After almost 2 years of misery, I'm mentally back to my old cheery self. Still have muscle pain in legs, but it's improving. Expect it will take time, but so glad to be feeling this way again. I know they work because my feet are normally ice blocks, but are warm now. I can actually feel the stuff working. I also take bromelain quercetin, and everyday vitamins. I've never had the virus to my knowledge, but became lethargic, then depressed with muscle pain after. Can't walk on inclines without having to stop. Pain has moved to thighs now, but not so bad. I had my blood test to measure my hematocrit the other day. That value was always in the upper reach of acceptable at around 51. In the past, I would give a pint of blood to lower it, and while perhaps I was helping another, the 3-4X/year phlebotomy was sapping my energy levels. At age 70, I ain't no spring chicken, and this process affected my endurance in cycling. In searching for an alternative solution, I discovered nattokinase and started taking it daily. Well, my hematocrit reading on this recent test showed 44. Wow, that's lower than what giving blood did. Nattokinase really works. Background, I've had chronic congestion my whole life. Flonase and other nasal inhalers, as well as neti rinses, provide some relief, but it is fleeting. Sometimes they have the inverse effect and make my congestion worse. Afrin works, but obviously can't use that all the time and do not want to become dependent on it. Congestion makes me more anxious, have more brain fog, have terrible cardio, even when training regularly, and is just all around extremely unpleasant. In the rare moments when I can breathe easily through my nose, I feel much calmer, more clear-headed, and like I enjoy physical exertion 1 billion times more. I recently started taking NK for high blood pressure, and I noticed strangely that my nasal congestion cleared up. I thought this was a coincidence, tried to find other variables, temporarily stopped taking it, and the congestion came back. Started taking it again, and the congestion again cleared up. I searched Reddit trying to find other similar anecdata, but didn't find anything. I started looking into PubMed to see if there were any studies, and I did find this one. Nattokinase, profibrinolytic enzyme, effectively shrinks the nasal polyp tissue and decreases viscosity of mucus. I don't know if others will have the same experience, but this supplement has been a godsend. I can finally breathe consistently. I feel so much more productive, calm, and engaged than ever before. It's so much cheaper than Flonase or other nasal sprays as well. Forgot to mention that the first time I took this, I had a minor sinus headache for a couple hours. A couple other people I know who have tried this experienced the same one-time headache. Not sure why it happens, but something to be aware of in case it occurs. So that pretty much wraps up today's video on nattokinase. If you did learn something new or you've actually benefited from supplementation yourself, please leave a comment down below. Let's get a discussion going so we can share with other people how you have benefited from this particular supplement. That's it from me today. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.